Long before the designer handbag became the status symbol of choice, another fashion accessory came to epitomize conspicuous consumption. Rapid industrialization had allowed them to be manufactured in the hundreds of thousands, and today we can almost use them as a barometer of technological advancement in manufacturing during the 19th century. What am I talking about? Why, the very thing that I became obsessed with over a decade ago, and to this day occupies almost every waking thought I have. My name is Brandon McKinney, and I'm a collector and restorer of 19th century parasols. From an early age, I had a fascination with 19th century fashion history and material culture. My earliest drawings show women in crinoline skirts and men in stovepipe hats. At the age of 6, my favorite thing was the Great Exhibition of 1851. At the age of 12, I bought my first antiques. As I aspired to be an illustrator during my early adolescence, being able to use the antiques I collected as visual references helped me feel I was making the environments I drew from imagination that much richer and more appropriate to the periods I was depicting. Then one day I came across my first parasol, actually 2 of them, at the same time. Parasols were, until that point, something I had seen only in historical images, fashion plates, and paintings. So being able to see and study an actual parasol from the 19th century was truly a special experience, to the point that when I started seeing them on my travels, I started to collect them. I was doing this not knowing 15 years later that I would have so many I would lose count, so I don't know how many I actually have. Be they the most expensive piece made from ivory or horn with jewels set in gold mounts bedecked in the most intricate handmade point lace, or goat's hair, or marabou, or the most inexpensive parasol with brittle rattan ribs made only to last a summer, yet still miraculously managing to survive until this present day. There is no parasol not worth studying. The most magical part of collecting parasols, as with any antique, is you sometimes get that little glimpse into the lives of the people who made them, the people who carried them, the people who sometimes were entrusted with the task of repairing them. Looking at the hand-sewn seams, and on occasion, the little names scratched into a hinge cover, can be a tangible link with history. Because parasols were not just fashion history, they were personal history, technological history, and so many untold stories can be held within these little objects of silk and whalebone. Usually, we find parasols today in a state of dishevelment, and to me it can be one of their principal charms. Even with the number of period images we have available to us today, showing these parasols when they were new, they can never match the pleasure of seeing such a sight in person. And with the parasols in my collection beginning to accumulate, I began to ask myself, what would these have looked like before time took its toll? As anyone who deals with antique textiles knows, time is usually not a friend to silk. And outside of shattering silk covers, rattan ribs become brittle, whalebone gets nibbled on by various critters, steel fittings can rust. Due to the parasol's delicate nature, a spring or summer bluster could bring them crashing to the ground, breaking ribs or handles, forever banishing them to a trunk in the attic. It's this fragility that allows the passage of time to prevent us from fully admiring the original beauty of these parasols. I could, I thought, try my hand at bringing them back. I knew, though, that restoring a parasol is a process that I only undertook after an extended period of consideration. Thankfully, I had a mentor who was willing to give me the first steps of the process, and with the application of what I felt were good and sensitive restoration practices, I commenced what would become my first completed parasol. It took a long time. There were a lot of false starts, and over 2 years there was a lot of flailing. But it set into motion the most wonderful sequence. To bring something back from the brink of oblivion, and to make its beauty new again, while honoring its past, is what's kept me going. It's now been a decade since I looked at that little broken parasol frame and thought, I can do this. While the parasol's main object is to shade and protect the complexion, it has done so much more for me, and this is why I love them.